The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Tastes just like candy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, 101 ways to make your love and your life sweeter. And you guess what? I'm going to start calling it the official podcast for people who believe in love. Let me know if you like that. You can comment here on the Facebook Live. Who I am Candice Harper, lovecoach.com. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships and seductive singlehoods. And I always say that dating and relationships can be hard, but love is always easy. And you are listening maybe to Armed Radio with the TuneIn app on your smart device. Perhaps you're in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. Or we're also now available on iHeartRadio. So if you have an Alexa, you can ask for Candy. Or maybe you're joining us live on Facebook. Who do I see? My regulars. I see Lee. I see Candice. I see Brandon. What's up, everybody? He's trickling on in. And if you are live on Facebook, you can either go to the Creative Love Collective and join my group. Also go to Armed Radio Group News so you can always know what I'm up to. And there's a lot of other really fantastic podcasts on the channel. If you are listening out in the garden or out anywhere within the sound of my voice during this broadcast, you can call me at 1-800-508-5431 if you have any comments, any questions, you want to join in. And you can also email me. There's so many ways to get at me. askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear it over the radio airwaves, the internet waves. I am sucking on a lozenge, which I don't normally do that. I feel like it's very unprofessional to have things in your mouth when you're supposed to be talking. But I'm coming down with a cold. I've been hanging out with a 7-year-old, and that's what happens. They're germ farms. Anyway, like I said, I'm Candice Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. And my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And what this show is about, each week we have lively conversations about different topics relating to love and relationships. Sometimes I do bring on special guests. You'll notice that tonight the audience is my special guest. My Facebook Live people, you're my special guest. So I'm going to expect you to participate. I'm going to expect you to join the conversation. The people out there in the radio ethers, I expect you also to participate. You can call in 1-800-508-5431. You guys are my special guests tonight. And this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of dating and relationship rules or rights and wrongs. And we're definitely not here to shame your situation. You know, I'm all about the release of shame. Shame does not work, especially when it comes to your love life. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. And tonight, I'm starting a brand new series because it's September, baby. I don't know about you, but I feel like the summer went by as if like nothing ever happened. I feel like it was end of April and now all of a sudden it's the beginning of September. Or maybe even the end of May. Even May was a normal pace of a month. The summer went by in a blink. And if you agree with me, please, hearts and likes. And if you feel like it's just all going by way too fast, not only will you be dating yourself, because that's what happens as you get older, you start to feel that way, but you'll be validating what I'm saying, which I don't mind that sometimes. So we're starting a brand new series because it is the fall. The fall is coming. I don't know if we've actually had the official first day of fall. I don't know how all that stuff works, but it is now officially fall, and so we're going to be talking about falling in love. Isn't that clever? I didn't come up with that. Actually, someone I was dating came up with that, and I stole it. So if you're watching, thank you. Basically, I'm going to be kind of chronicling my own experience for this whole series and kind of my own journey that I've been on. And right now I am feeling very much in a space of manifesting true love. Like I feel like it's close, it's there. I don't know if I'm completely ready for it yet, but this is the journey that we've been on. Those of you who've been, along with us, that we did the summer of sexploration and we talked about intimacy and how you get to turn intercourse into intimacy. That was from Timothy Jones, who was one of the guests, which I thought that was just, a brilliant, simple way to put it, which I think was a big part of my own learning experience as far as like how to create healthy relationships, being really present to the fact that a lot of people show up just for intercourse and not for intimacy. So this whole Falling in Love series is about how do you start from the beginning, or how do you restart if you're in a relationship that's not working right now, or if you're just, feeling like it's starting to die down, maybe you got a little bit of like, I don't know, relationship jet lag. Like, how do you get it going again? And I really do think that there's ways to do it. And we're going to talk about that tonight. And it does sort of speak to that whole, I think we tend to, I was talking to a friend last night, we do tend to lose our sense of intimacy. And I think that that's why intercourse dies off. If you've been in a relationship for a long time, I have. I think the reason that intercourse dies off and it gets old is because when there's no intimacy involved, it becomes like, it's just functioning. It's like brushing your teeth. And yeah, you may keep brushing your teeth because you don't want to lose them. But, if you don't have any emotional connection to it, it's not like, something that you find pleasurable. I don't know anybody who's like, oh, I can't wait to brush my teeth again. It's so wonderful. It's just a habit. And for those of us who are lazy, we might just quit the habit and not do it at all and not care. I think that's what happens with people's sex lives. I'm totally digressing, by the way. And those of you who are on Facebook Live, that when I'm here by myself, I pressure myself to fill the space and that I'm good for just like talking straight through. So if you guys have something to say and you want to jump in, feel free, because I will shout you out. And it'll give me a moment to like pause and, come up off my thoughts. I see where Lee and Candice both said hello. I see Brandon. Thank you for the applause. I love you guys. Don't be afraid to hit some likes and hearts. I like the likes and hearts. I don't usually ask for likes and hearts because I'm like, oh, so far above that, but I'm so not. I love the likes and hearts. Okay. So like I said, this is the season for falling in love. And this is going to be a journey. I'm going to have guests just like I did for the summer of sexploration of what it takes to attract healthy love, to create a healthy relationship, even if you're already in a crappy one, or just create a foundation of self-love that makes all else fall into place. Now, I'm going to talk about this tonight. I strongly believe that self-love does make all else fall into place. But we're going to talk about what self-love really is. I feel like it's just this cliched, it gets repeated. I say it over and over again. And I don't know that we ever really talk about what it means to be in a relationship with yourself. And sometimes I think when we say that phrase, and, for those of us who don't know what that means or what it even is, it's almost even funny. At least Lee says falling in love is intoxicating. I agree with you, Lee. Falling in love can be very, very intoxicating. And I love that you brought that up, because I think there's two kinds of ways it can be intoxicating. One is a not so healthy way, and the other is a more healthy way. And we're going to talk about that too. But, I want us to like really delve into this topic of self-love, because I think sometimes it gets confused with narcissism. I think sometimes people think that it's so trite and it's so cliched that they don't even really, it's like for me, I used to feel like self-love was making sure to get manicures and pedicures and go on vacation on a regular basis. And sure, that's exterior self-love, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not the deep stuff that has you attracting healthy relationships, right? So what I want to do first, and I really want you guys to participate with this, is in our conversation to generate how to identify if self-love is lacking in your life. Because I think, like I said, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, do I love myself? I would have jumped to say, absolutely. I definitely love myself, no doubt. But I would have been coming from a place of, getting mani-pedis and going on vacation. So, but if you would ask me, like, what are you experiencing in your life? Like, I didn't think about what the impact not understanding self-love was having on my life. I didn't think about, or I didn't know to think about, that it was attracting people who were, treating me the way that I was treating myself, which was being very self-critical. Like, the inner dialogue was very self-critical, being a perfectionist, nothing was ever good enough. Like, I was attracting that into my life, thinking that I was a self-loving person. And no one wants to admit that they don't love themselves, because it sounds like you're saying that you're unhealthy somehow. I mean, join the club. Like, first of all, we come from a culture that does not foster self-love in any stretch of the imagination. Everything is trying to sell to us, saying that, you're not enough, so you need this thing. Or, your life will be better if you had this thing. And then we're conditioned, like our culture, the way that we raise our children, we don't raise our children, oh, grow up and love yourself. It's like, grow up and achieve. Grow up and get an education. Grow up and make sure you can get a job, so then you can be good enough. Get successful, whatever success is, in your family, and then you'll be good enough. There's no, like, we're just not taught that. And obviously there's exceptions. I'm sure there's people out there who, like, are so tuned in. So I think the first thing we should do is identify the impact of having, like, lacking self-love, the impact that can have on our lives. I know for some of you who do not like to do the emotional work, you're probably groaning, you're ready to tune out, you're like, oh, what the fuck is she talking about? Why am I on this podcast? Well, stick around, because if you come up with any and you think of any, I mean, I say share it with us, because if you're thinking of it and if it's something you've dealt with or someone you know has dealt with it, trust me, someone out here listening has dealt with it too. The point of this is to have a community and understand that we're not alone with our BS. And also, even if you just think of it and you don't want to share it, like, it might give you an access to some power that you can get in your life that you didn't have before. So just be open, let's see what happens. Here's a couple that I came up with, and these are the ways to identify if self-love is lacking in your life. So the first one I came up with is if your marriage or your relationship sucks to be in it. If it sucks to be in your relationship, self-love is lacking in your life. Some of you might be like, no, I love myself. I just don't love that person. Like, I'm just over them. I'm tired of them, whatever. So the reason that I argue that it's not just that you don't love them, and you might not love them anymore, absolutely. But the reason that I argue that is because two things. If you're coming from a place of self-love in a relationship that is not working, first of all, you understand that if you don't take care of yourself and you're settling for less than what works for you, clearly right there, that's like self-abuse. And second of all, you're denying yourself a learning opportunity, which is also self-abuse. Like, if you're in a breakdown in your relationship, there's something to be learned from it. I mean, without getting extremely specific, because everybody has their different issues when their relationships break down, but there's a lesson to be learned. And whether you're supposed to be together or not be together, if it is impossible for you to get into a place where you have enough compassion for yourself and that other person that you can even, part ways in a way that's not adversarial, or, just communicate enough to talk out what's going on. If it's impossible for you to get to that place, just consider the possibility that there's a self-denial going on. Like whatever I feel and whatever I need is not worthy of having a hard conversation. Whatever I need to do for myself is not worthy of the sacrifice that I might have to make that's not working for me anyway. Like, if you're staying with somebody for the money or, whatever, like, if you're unhappy, none of what you think you're attached to is working for you. So that is a good sign that self-love is lacking in your life. If you hate being single and you classify yourself as being lonely, that's a big sign that self-love is not working in your life. Because, I mean, you guys all know, you can't be with yourself. How do you expect anybody else to be able to be with you? And that's our first, I mean, you have to be the love of your life. If being alone makes you feel lonely, if being alone, and I know it sounds so reasonable, right? Oh, if I'm alone, then I must be lonely. No, if you're alone and that makes you unhappy, that's like a refusal to generate any love for yourself. Like I always say at the end of the show, you are a love machine. You ever feel like you're not getting what you need, just make more. That's, how we're built. And yes, we are also built for connection. We are social. We are social creatures. We are social animals. However, if in your singlehood you're sitting in a space of misery rather than reaching out to connect and finding ways to overflow and to fill yourself up, once again you're denying yourself what is possible. There's no reason why your singlehood can't be a happy, wonderful time. And trust me, I'm just coming off of one. Well, not coming off of it just yet, but I'm just coming from about a year and a half of chosen singlehood, where I've gotten to date, I've gotten to meet different people, I've gotten to see what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and enjoyed every minute of that aspect of it. Enjoyed every minute of what it's like to just decide for myself and to, think in terms of my own preferences and just be in a moment of what really works for me. Just really letting myself enjoy that, enjoy my space, enjoy my life, rather than take it as a moment of lack or get fearful because I'm, single, as if there's something wrong with that. Because trust me, if you're not happy single, I say this all the time, you're not going to be happy in a relationship. And those of you who know what I'm talking about, please hit the thumbs up or, send me a holla. If you've been in a bad relationship and you know what that's like and you know what it's like to walk away and then spend some time by yourself, you can go ahead and back me up on that. I see Dan and Michael and Tony joined. What's up, everybody? I'm glad that you're here. Please feel free to join in on the conversation. So here's another one that I came up with. And also feel free, you guys, if you think of if anything's and I know out there, you're oh, I don't want to put my business on Front Street. But if you're out there and something is swirling around in your head right now, just comment it. Identify somewhere in your life or even someone in their life, where is the self-love lacking and what is the impact? So here's another one. And I can't believe I'm only on the third one because I got a ton of them. You got beefs. If you are walking around beefing with a whole lot of people, and, for those of you who don't know what beefing means, it's if you have issues with a lot of people, if you're out there getting into it, getting in conflicts, or you have people that you resent that maybe used to be in your life, but you cut them off emotionally. If you have even, I'd say one or two. I think we all on some level have one or two people that we just have decided to walk away from. And even they're an indication of where something was triggered. I have to say, even for myself, if I think of the couple people that I really don't want to deal with right now, they triggered something in me, something that I didn't want to look at. But if you're walking around with 3, 4, 5 people or more that you've gotten into it with, and you still, they owe you an apology, or, you're still walking around in anger mode about however however it went down, consider that is a huge sign that you are lacking self-love. There's that old saying, resentment is the poison we take in order to kill somebody else. It's if you are letting your resentful or negative feelings, or if you're replaying a conflict over and over in your mind, any of that stuff, it is a sure sign that self-love is lacking. Because here's the thing, I don't believe that we have limited energy or limited creativity, but is it worth it to be putting all of your energy or time that you could be spending improving your financial situation, or learning a new skill, or planning travel, or any of those things, to be spending any of your brain space and any of your bandwidth on how someone did you wrong, or to even classify yourself as a victim. The act of classifying yourself as a victim is a sign of lacking self-love. And if you disagree with me on that, you can definitely speak up. Lee says, I can say the beef comes from the hurt. The hurt takes the place of love. It is toxic. I totally agree with that, Lee. I know that the beef comes from the hurt, but here's the very careful thing about this. We are responsible for all of our responses, and we are responsible for how we experience the world. We're not responsible for how other people show up in our lives. We're not responsible for the things that people do that does not work for us, but we are responsible for what we make it mean. And so if we consider, and this is even in a long-term relationship, I know especially for people who've been through ugly divorces and things like that, if we consider the possibility that everything that person did was not in order to hurt us, but rather to fulfill something within themselves through a space of lacking self-love, that doesn't mean that, oh, everything's hearts and flowers and we have to be like Jesus in our forgiveness. However, it does give us the space to be responsible for how we showed up and also take our power back as far as, if someone is in a space where they are unhealthy enough that they're actually coming after us in some way, or that they're actually being so manipulative or, causing negativity in our lives, we give our power away if we go ahead and get into the negativity, or if we let it make decisions for us, or if we put it at the head of the table. So now the way you're navigating with me, I don't like it, so I'm going to navigate with you in a way that doesn't work right back. Trust me, I'm not speaking from like up on a hill. I'm right, like I will get it gully, and I can have, a couple people probably I can call them, and they will tell you that if you wrong me, I'll be there for the fight. Now that's something I'm working on. Because what that's triggering is the parts of me that haven't, found full self-acceptance, that aren't in a space of, fully loving myself. And the moment that I say to myself, okay, you're not being self-loving, it's just so much easier to release the idea that someone took something from me, no matter what it might be. Lee says, I had a situation. I reacted from the hurt I had and ignored their pain. It ended poorly because neither of our reactions were from love. That absolutely makes sense. And here's the thing about reacting from love, too. It doesn't mean that you have to stay together. You said the relationship wasn't healthy. Absolutely not. Reacting from love or acting from love doesn't mean that you're trying to force a relationship to stay together. And if it starts to get ugly and you like you said, if you got a lot of beefs and a lot of conflicts and all of that stuff, it's worthwhile to at least get into enough communication and enough. I'm not taking myself so seriously that I can't see that I'm a participant in what's not working here. So that if we're going to walk away, we can at least walk away with some level of peace that we both showed up in a way that excuse my French, fucked up the whole situation. I'll be the first one to say, I talk about my last relationship being abusive. Trust me when I tell you, I gave as good as I got. And I was down for that ride. And I was in a space of not self-loving. I had absolutely forgotten who I was during the time that I was in that relationship. And the person that I attracted mirrored that exact thing of forgetting who I was, not caring for myself, not loving myself, and, coming in and treating me exactly how I was treating me on the inside, the inner dialogue. So yeah, thank you, Lee, for jumping in on that. Like, I get it. I totally get it. And we all end up in those spaces sometimes, because sometimes, I feel like self-love is one of those things that we aren't at 100% on all the time. It would be impossible. That's not the human experience. Self-acceptance, being able to forgive yourself and, offer yourself a lot of compassion. Like I said, we don't come from a society that teaches us that. That's not in our culture naturally. It's something that we actually have to be in awareness of a lot of times, unless you come from a family that made you very aware, which I think is great. So here's another one, and I think I sort of touched on it a little bit. So if you're disconnected from the people who are closest to you. So I have a current client who, she's going through something with her husband, and she's like, I can't tell anybody in my life. She basically called me because she couldn't tell anyone who's already existing in her life. And here's why, it's not that she's wrong, but what she's experiencing right now is a lack of self-love, because what she's trying to do is keep some sort of facade to the people who are her people. Now, you might say, oh, what if her people aren't supportive? What if they're not that great of people? What if they're going to make fun of her? And she did mention that, that it's gotten very superficial with the people in her family and things like that, her mother, her sisters and stuff like that. However, and this is just something to be explored, when we have the people in our lives that we love, and we say that we're close to these people, and what we want is a close intimate relationship with our families too. And when we're going through something, there's a way to share. Now you can share as a victim, which would then, make the people in your life have judgments. If it's about a partner, they might turn against your partner. Or you can share as someone who's taking responsibility for what they're experiencing and just come from an honest place. Like, this is what's going on in my relationship right now. This is what I'm dealing with. This is how I've been dealing with it. It's not working. And right now I'm going through a tough time. It's vulnerable, but it's as simple as that. Like, when we're unwilling to share with the people we are closest to, what we're saying is that we don't deserve that kind of support. This all comes to like deserve level. We're not enough to be able to garner that kind of support. We're going to do it wrong, or they're going to do it wrong, or it's not going to work out well. We have no faith in it because we don't have love and self-love and self-acceptance to sort of support us. Because even if you get a negative reaction, if you're coming from a space of self-love, you get that a negative reaction is about that person. If you talk to your mama and she doesn't understand, and you come from an honest, vulnerable place, I'm going through a hard time, and she can't say, oh, I know what that's like, and what can I do for you? Anything else is her issue. If she says, oh, you need to do better, it's because you're not good enough, or, whatever. And if you're coming from a place of self-love, you can get that. You can get that everyone's offense is not about you, it's about them. Anyway, I don't want a soapbox. So those of you on the Facebook Live, you can keep participating. I see Steven just joined. Hi, Steven. It's nice. I love that so many people that I went to high school with actually join in. Thank you. I appreciate the support. It's like homegirl support. Anyway, let's get through these because I have so much more. Beyond this, here's another one. If you keep attracting people who hurt you or you're in an abusive situation, obviously that is not a self-loving position to be in. But, that's when we get a chance to look. Like, why am I settling for this? Like, why am I accepting people who hurt me? Why am I in an abusive situation? Why am I letting this be okay? What am I telling myself about myself that, spending years with someone who just does not do me right? And I'm not just talking about for women. Men end up in abusive situations too. And it's not always somebody smacking you around. Sometimes it's someone just lying to you all the time, or gaslighting you, or undermining you, undercutting what you're saying, not supporting your passions. This is going to sound a little dramatic, but when someone doesn't support what you're passionate about, for whatever reason, that is a form of abuse, especially if they're like, no, like crack the whip, like you need to be making money, you need to be doing this, like don't be thinking about, wanting to be a musician at night. Don't be thinking about the things that you're passionate about. Like that's not going to put food on the table. And I get it, especially when you have kids. Everybody wants their partners and stuff to be able to provide. But if you can't get into a space where you're supporting your partner in what they love and what they're passionate about, and you're not resistant to the parts of your partner that may not be your favorite, not only is it a sign that you're lacking self-love, but it's also a good sign of incompatibility too. Which, it's we're going to do a whole nother podcast about that. This is the thing. When you talk about love and relationships, there's just so much like juicy content around it because there's so many different directions that we can go. But what I really wanted to do, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to start out this series, like really focusing on this concept of self-love and the importance of it all. Just want to take a little small break though and show you this horrible job I did on my nails trying to do a Pinterest. I did my own Pinterest manicure and it did not look like the Pinterest picture. And also I wanted everyone to notice that I'm wearing white the last possible day since it's Labor Day. And happy Labor Day, everybody. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Another sign that you may be lacking in self-love in your life is if you're generally an unhappy or dissatisfied person. Now, I know most of my people who listen in, there's probably, I don't know. I don't think that most of you come on and you're all depressed, But there might be some of you out there. I've been through depression. I've had bouts of depression, and we go through ups and downs in our lives and things like that. But if you're someone who's just generally dissatisfied, I call them dissatisfaction junkies. Like there's always something to complain about, especially if you have a roof over your head, food on the table. You don't have to worry about where, your next meal is coming from. You're able to take vacations or buy new clothes, or, you have new shoes on. But there are people, it doesn't matter how much they have, they're always going to be in a state of complaining. So that is just a sign of lacking self-love. It's like, it's a constant resistance. It's a resistance to gratitude. It's a resistance to peace. Because think about it, whenever you're complaining about something, you're not peaceful. Like that means you're not having a good time, even when you could be choosing to have a good time. So there's nothing that's peaceful about that. So, yeah. So if you're generally unhappy, dissatisfied about things, always complaining, always in a state of complaint, the thing to look at, when you're in that state is, I may not be like it may seem like I'm just not loving life or loving things about life or around life, but what it really is that I am not loving and trusting myself and allowing myself to be in gratitude and deserving of the parts that are good. I'm only focusing on what's not there, what doesn't exist, as far as my perception is concerned. I don't want to get too convoluted with that. Wait, Jim is telling me, hold on, what'd you say, Jimmy? Jimmy's my producer. He said, flood Facebook with our flag. I don't know what that means, Jim. You gotta tell me what that means or show me what that means.
There's a flag, and they just want you to share it out to everybody so everybody can see our flag.
What, the United States flag?
I don't know the story behind it, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, but I don't even know what flag to share. Like, where's the flag at?
It's if you press the button, it's like a video, and it shows you a flag waving.
Shows you a flag waving. Oh. Yeah, I don't know where that is, Jim. I'm looking on the Facebook page and I don't see it anywhere.
I didn't even know if I sent it to.
You did send that to me. It's okay. Anyway, we'll figure it out, and maybe later on, or later when I put it on YouTube, I'll make sure that there's a flag. I guess it's for Labor Day. I'm assuming it's the United States flag.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. I mean, I love the patriotism. I wish I had a flag to just pop into the comments, because I don't see a button for it, but we'll work it out. I'll use some, I don't know, Photoshop magic, some iMovie magic. So then here's another couple ones, and then what we're gonna skip to is, because I want you guys to walk away with some value, right? We're gonna talk about what self-love isn't, not just how it shows up when it's lacking, but then we're gonna talk about what it is and the 5 steps to actually getting into a good relationship with yourself. So here are some of the other things. If you feel like you miss out on a lot of the things that you want in your life, if you feel limited by perfectionism, if you care more about what other people think about you than what you think about you, that's definitely the impact of the lack of self-love, not loving yourself, needing validation from other people. If you attach yourself to your career, your ideas, your people, pets, things, etc. If you claim that sort of stuff is your identity, this is who I am, this is how I am, that's a sheer sign that you're lacking self-love. Because if it's something external of you, some people identify themselves by the job that they do. And I used to do that. I identified myself as a television art director. I'm a career girl. I came all the way to New York to get successful, and I did it. I was like Mary Tyler Moore. And then when I got laid off from that last day job, oh my gosh, all of my identity was wrapped up in that. And so all of a sudden it's well, who the fuck am I now? Because I didn't get married. I didn't have kids. All I have is a little Pomeranian at home with a cough. She'd always be like, That's all I had in my life. And then I lost my job. So I had to think about, what do I do? What do you do when your identity is wrapped up in your marriage, the person you're married to, and then something happens to that person? God forbid. Nobody's wishing that. Or if the relationship breaks down and they walk away, what do you do? A lot of women do that, where they, wrap their whole lives up in, being a wife. Or, what do you do if however you've decided to define yourself and it's external goes away? Then you have to figure out, like, what is my identity? But that's a sheer sign of like lacking self-love, feeling like you have to attach yourself to something external. You are not your job. You are not the person you married. You are not your accomplishments. That is not you. That's how you've shown up in the world, and that's the stuff that's external of you. You're not your dog. Some people are like, oh, me and my dog, people always identify us, and they talk to my dog, and that's how I'm social. That's the only way I know how to break the ice with people. Whatever. We're all a field of possibility. But that is a sure sign that you're not loving yourself. You keep a lot of secrets, you hide a lot of shame, whatever you're keeping a secret about, whatever you're shameful of. Trust me, there's a lot of other people that have been through the same thing. A lot of them are also keeping the secret and hiding the shame. If you live in fear of being hurt, found out, or humiliated. Here's the thing about shame. The moment you share your secret, shame gets relieved. Now, you can't just share your secret anywhere. If you're sharing your secret with somebody who's going to trigger even more of the shame, that might be difficult. But I'll tell you what, in my last relationship, I was with someone who triggered my shame quite a bit. And in as much as I was hating it at the time, when I walked away from that relationship, I was glad that he did it, because it showed me that I was shameful about something that I didn't think I was shameful about anymore, because I was pretending I wasn't shameful about it. So I'm not into all those personal details, but I'm just saying I got an access to how I could release that shame and love myself a little bit more. Because whatever you've done, whatever you've been through, whatever has happened to you, there's somebody else out there who's experienced the same, similar. So when we walk around with our secrets and our shame and we're hiding ourselves. I mean, granted, if you're committing a crime and you would go to jail for whatever your secret is, that's one thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But we're talking about everyday life and, how we navigate our relationships and, the things that happen to us, around us, about us, the mistakes that we made that sometimes we can really give ourselves, like we rake ourselves over the coals for. So, does anybody else, I saw Angela came in and Jonathan came in. Does anybody else have anything about the impact of not having self-love and any thoughts that they may have about that? Like if it's impacted your life, if it's impacted the life of someone you know. I'm going to take a sip of water. If you do, feel free to chime in. I'm going to keep it moving because as usual, we are quickly running out of time. This goes to show you how good I am at running my mouth, because 40 minutes has gone by. And to me, it's like nothing, except for the fact that I got a little sore throat. I could probably go another 2 hours. All right, let's talk about what self-love is not, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. What really being in a truly healthy relationship with yourself is not. Candice says, so true. Many define themselves as wife, mother, etc., and lose their self when the relationship ends and the kids grow up. Absolutely, Candice. I totally agree with that. I have people close to me in my life that experience that similar thing. And that's not even to make them wrong. We do what we know to do, right? We do what we think we should do, or, what we've been told, or what our mothers did and whatever. But yeah, like kids grow up and, the relationships change and, they may or may not always feel the same way about you, or maybe they do. Maybe you're absolutely 100% in love. Then if you're not, self-identified and loving yourself and have your own passions and your own purpose and your own interests, you might not be able to experience that love fully. Ooh, that was deep. Anyway. So let's talk about what self-love is not, the misconceptions, what people think it is. So like standards and expectations that you have to be the best so that you can win when compared to other people. Like that is not self-love. People think, if I'm driving myself to success, I'm loving myself. If I'm driving myself to make enough money, if I'm meeting these certain standards, these standards that if you notice people who are always trying to, and I did it to myself, people who are always trying to meet the next standard, they never actually get there. Because it's like as soon as you get, you think you're getting close to the bar raises. So when you're giving yourself standards and expectations to meet in order to win, bar is you're just going to keep raising the bar. You never get to like sit in peace and be like, oh, you know what? I'm good. I'm enough. And that doesn't mean you give up on your life. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that is not self-love. That's something people do to drive themselves. And that's about other people, looking good for other people. Another thing, looking good for other people, perfectionism. Self-love is not perfectionism. It's not making sure that everything be just so before you do, A has to be just so before you do B in order to have C. It doesn't work like that. If you're waiting, like me, I was telling my friend earlier, I don't know if you guys are on Instagram. I do this daily videos called, and they're short. They're like 10 minutes or whatever, less than 10 minutes. Naked face walks where I wear absolutely no makeup. I'm in a head wrap and I'm doing my workout in the park. And I just take a few minutes of inspiration just to talk to the people, anybody who wants to listen. And for the longest time, I would get inspired during my workout. And I would say, oh, I'm going to wait till I take a shower, put on makeup, get my hair straight, do the whole thing before I video this great idea I just had, before I share this inspiration. And what I was doing was just like stopping myself. Because by the time I got on makeup and did all that stuff, there was other things I needed to do and I never got around to it, or I lost the inspiration and forgot what I was even going to say. So I say all of that to say that's how we limit ourselves with perfectionism. Some people think that expecting yourself to be perfect is a way to love yourself, and it's not. It absolutely is not. Or setting yourself up, with perfection. Some people think that is self-love. If I can look good, look a certain way, and, whatever. Absolutely not self-love. Another thing is pretending to be proud of the things that actually make you ashamed. My ex used to do this a lot with weed smoking because he would talk about wanting to quit all the time, but then also pretend like he was this badass about it and he was so proud of it. So, I have no judgments, like whether you do or you don't or whatever, that's your thing. But if you have something in your life like addiction or, here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So there's this body acceptance movement, which I absolutely agree that everybody should accept their body. Absolutely. Accept your body, love your body. And with that said, also take care of your body. Try to eat as healthy as you can. Not saying you have to be 100% perfect all the time. You don't have to meet any beauty standards or be skinny or any of that, but exercise, eat healthy foods and all of that stuff. But what I notice, especially with younger people in this body acceptance movement, is that a lot of people are like, I'm going to not take care of myself. I'm going to not, look at how my emotions affect how I'm showing up in my life. I'm not going to look at my food addiction. I'm going to eat whatever I want, and I'm going to walk around like I love being fat. I'm going to expect the world to mold to what I need, like build those wider seats and, make sure, I'm not embarrassed. And, if you say anything about it, you're shaming me, which there we go back to, I'm just triggering you're already triggering within yourself. Like that is not a healthy, self-loving, that's like a veneer of, let me put up this thing where I pretend like what I'm doing is okay. Like I pretend like I'm not ashamed of it. And sometimes it gets mistaken for self-love. Now let me give a caveat to this, because that's not me saying you can't be a big girl or a big guy and, taking pictures of yourself on Instagram and proud of what you look like. I'm not saying that. There's a lot of women, there's a couple that are pretty famous that are overweight and doing yoga and taking care of themselves and, whatever. I'm not judging what their lifestyle is. I don't know how they're living every day, but there's also this contingent. And if you ever watch YouTube, you'll see them of like young people who aren't taking care of themselves and will be ready to fight you if you have anything to say about them allowing themselves to be overweight and pretending like, oh, I love it. I'm happy with it. We're not meant to be sedentary, obese, and shoving food in our mouths, and that is not a healthy state. Those are all symptoms of an underlying issue. Whether you want to admit it or not, I know we could fight it to the death. I've been there. I'm a food addict myself. Weight up and down. I get it. All that stuff is like self-abuse, not self-love. Resenting other people. Resenting other people is clearly not like walking around like, everybody else is toxic and I got it all together. Like some people think that that's self-love, but it's a facade. Because if I have resentment for other people, they're triggering something within me that speaks to my lack of self-love. We already talked about that. And then narcissism, this expectation that other people have to meet your needs or suffer the consequences, or when your ego is running the show. Like that's a total misconception about self-love, because people, especially if you watch like reality shows, like Real Housewives and stuff like that, they think that self-love is about looking as good as possible on the outside, acting like you're above all of the nonsense, even though you're like, poking fingers and like you're in it in a manipulative, low-key kind of way. And just putting on this facade like you got it all together, which that's very common in our social society. That's narcissism, especially when you're like ready to, talk about somebody behind their back, or, you want to knock a bitch out or whatever. That is not real self-love, because you're ready to knock somebody out and you think you're standing up for yourself. Standing up for yourself is like really coming from a place of peace and not letting somebody trigger you in that way. Anyway, I'm going in all different directions. Self-love is, because we're running low on time, which is crazy. Self-love is the opposite of shame. And it's just like what I was talking about. Like, no one can trigger you when you love yourself, because you've made peace with all of it. All of it that works, all of it that doesn't work, all of it that's, that does fit in with tradition, and all of it that doesn't fit in with tradition. Like, people can't trigger you if you have made peace with what is inside of you. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, there are things that people could probably say to me that would trigger me. And I know it's because I haven't made peace with it. We're all on that same plane. But if you're constantly triggered, you gotta like look at it. Like, where am I lacking self-love that people are able to just, set me off like fireworks? That's an issue. I've been there. Like, so easily set off. What's some other things that self-love is? The ability to buoy yourself without negating parts of yourself. So, if you're constantly buoying yourself and it's sort of an inauthentic, like, you big up yourself to everybody, I'm so great, that goes back to narcissism. But if you're able to motivate yourself and be self-driven, not despite, but along with the things that you consider to be weaknesses about yourself, if you're willing to accept those weaknesses and maybe turn them into strengths in some way, or just love them, like be your own mom in that way. Like, it's okay. I don't have to be 100% perfect. That is self-love. Like, I accept that this is the way that I am. And I also accept that if I wanted to change it, I could change it. And I accept that maybe I don't choose to change it right away, but I'm not so attached to it that I have to either beat myself up about it, or I have to like fake, big up myself. Like, I'm so, I'm the greatest ever, and, all of that stuff. So self-love is also loving where you came from, even if it was not ideal. And if you had an ideal situation, kudos to you, because I know no one who came from the Norman Rockwell painting. Absolutely. I know no one who came from that painting. I know people who love their family and are close to their family, maybe can say they had a happy childhood, whatever. No one had perfection. Everybody has something that they feel like, could have been different, could have been better. And that's also an indication of some self-love issues. But when you can't love where you came from, and when I say even when it wasn't ideal, I mean even if it was shitty. If you can't love who it formed you into, then that is not self-love. Self-love is being able to say, all my hardships, all of my losses are lessons. All of it formed who I am today. All of it. Even the stuff that I didn't want to have to go through. And some people go through some horrible, horrible things. Some of them come out of it and they rock this world, and they show up in a way that's amazing and it's bigger than anybody can even imagine. And some people get beaten down with it. And no matter what it is, without judging anyone's situation, it does come down to choice. And self-love is making the choice to make all of it, exactly what you needed to grow you into who you are in this moment right now. And so you can beat yourself up about it, and you can be like, beat me down, I'm a victim, I'm not going to get anywhere. Or you can make a self-loving choice and say, look, this was a challenge that was presented for me. It was for me alone, because I was the only one powerful enough to deal with it. and I'm just going to do what I can to rock it and meet up with this challenge and not let it dictate what my future is going to be like. So paying attention, following your intuition, listening to your gut. Some people call it your intuition, your gut, your womb space, your inner knowing, your inner wisdom, your inner God, whatever you want to call it. We all have it. We all have this voice inside of ourselves that tells us things and tells us what works and what doesn't work and gives us the answers when we need them. So self-love is listening to that voice. It's trusting that voice. It's, relationship requires trust. Self-love relationship, discovering or creating purpose in your life, your relationships, your career, your money, every area of your existence, just not settling for anything external of you to not be working for you. And we're all in a space of working on that, right? I have areas in my life that I'm working on making them work, areas that do work, areas that don't work. Faith that you are valuable and will be supported if your beliefs and actions align with knowing that you're valuable. If what you do aligns with knowing that you're a valuable person, that is self-love. And when you can have the faith that the universe or God or whatever you believe in will take care of you based on being aligned with those values, that is what self-love is. And it works. I don't know. Try it. You may or may not believe me. So you guys can give me your opinion on what you think self-love actually is. I want to be able to squeeze in these 5 steps. This hour has gone by so fast. It's crazy. Like, I wish I had 3 hours to talk to you. So here are these 5 steps. And these 5 steps, just by the way, if you take my 45-day intensive program, you not only will rock these 5 steps, but even more. Like the amount of clarity and the amount of life-changing and the amount of power that you possess after 45 days of working with me, I can't even explain. I think clients would have to explain it for you. Well, actually, maybe what I'll do is bring on a client and have them, describe what it's like. Anyway, so number 1, clean your slate, your conditioning, whatever was told to you about you. Who cares? Like, forget it. Like, you don't have to be what your mom told you you're going to be, or how your mom told you you're going to be, or your dad, or your teachers at school, or, if somebody said something about you when you were a kid and, that kid got really hurt and so decided something about the world or whatever. You can clean that slate. Start all over again. Brand new, clean, white canvas to start your painting. Reinvent yourself. I was talking on my Naked Face Walk this morning when I was videoing about Madonna. Her career in the 80s and the 90s was constantly about reinventing. And yes, that was an external reinventing. But you can do you can do the same thing internally. Just reinvent. Clean the slate. Be the possibility of whatever you want to be. If you want to be a happy person, choose happiness. If you want to be someone who is confident and can do what you need to do, you got to choose confidence. Now that has to do with connecting with purpose, but I'm going to touch on that right now. The second one is finding your purpose, creating your why. I actually don't like to use the word find because it's like it's somewhere outside of me. And there might be things out there that might trigger and show you your purpose. This is all about the way to get in relationship with yourself, by the way. There might be things out there that help you discover it, but really it's going back to listening to your intuition, listening to your inner knowing and your gut. Create your own why. I always say, I believe our purpose is where our talents and our passions meet our challenges. I'm talented at talking and communicating and listening, believe it or not. I don't always just like talk and talk and talk like it seems like I do on this podcast. But that's one of my talents is communication. So, and my passion is like really helping people solve problems. Like even as an art director, when I used to build props and sets and things like that, it was like, what is going to be the problem? What do we need to do today? Or we're going to play a game with, it's a grocery store game. So we're going to need conveyor belts. We're going to need this. We're going to need that. Like I'm a problem solver. I like to see people's problems get solved. And I'm passionate about that. And especially if it's real life problems, I'm very passionate about that. And, one of my biggest challenges have been relationships. So when I fused all that together, I became a love coach because that's purposeful for me. I know what it means to overcome and transform things in your life and have a different experience than you would have had before. And I want to bring people along for that ride. So, that's how that's one of the big steps for how I got into relationship with myself. Figuring out my purpose. Also, forgiveness. I forgot to mention, when you're cleaning the slate, forgiveness, not just of other people, forgiveness of yourself. And forgiveness is not just, oh, let me be like Jesus and act like it never happened. It's like, let me look at what I decided about it and how it's been impacting my life ever since whatever happened. Learning to trust yourself and intuition. I mentioned that. So trust is necessary for any good relationship. That's number 3 in the 5 steps. Releasing your shame story. I talked about that. Your shame story is wherever you are letting anyone trigger you. I was having a discussion with a good girlfriend of mine, and she's struggling with her mother-in-law for years now. The woman triggers her. And that's not to say that the mother-in-law doesn't have bad behavior. She's triggered by this behavior. And the reason she's triggered, because someone else might not be triggered. This woman probably wouldn't trigger me. Obviously, I'm not in her family, so that's another good reason why, too. But really, it has nothing to do with that. Because if you think about people who have triggered you, sometimes they're people that you're not related to. Sometimes they're just people at work. They're other people's relatives, whatever. Your triggers are your teachers. If somebody is triggering something in you, they are your teacher. They are showing you something about yourself. So if you can just, look at it, figure out what it is. What am I feeling shameful about? What am I not saying? What am I not telling the truth about that this person is honing right in on and they're hitting my buttons? If you're willing to look at, those buttons being hit, that is number 4 in, my little 5 steps right here to a good relationship with yourself. Just allow it. It's okay. It's okay to admit you've been wrong or that you've had some shitty behaviors. It's okay to admit you've been responsible too. It's all good. We all make mistakes. We're all human, right? Number 5, become aware of your deserve level. Look at what you've been accepting. I mentioned this before. Look at what you've been accepting in your life. And if it conflicts with what it is you say you truly want for yourself, like if there's a conflict going on somewhere deep within you, you are feeling undeserving of what you say you want. And a good way to get into a relationship with yourself is to challenge whatever you're believing that's saying you don't deserve it. Like, be willing to look at that, be open to that. I think I only got a minute left. Challenge that. Anyway, that's the 5 steps. If you want me to comment, I'll put it below in the comments. It's also, I'll put it on my website or something like that. I have a 45-day intensive coaching program. You guys know you can take it. We're going to be doing this series of new beginnings and how to get into a healthy relationship for the next 3 months, probably. I'm going to have guests. A lot of good things are coming. And also, don't forget to go to the YouTube channel if you want to watch any of the old videos. Now, for the people in Armed Radio Global, until next time, never forget you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for Candy. And I thank you for being here, because I know Armed Radio Global is going to sign off pretty soon. So I don't want you guys to have to leave without getting the end of it. Also, if during the course of this whole podcast, thank you, Lee. Lee says much love to you, my darling. Thank you for the support and for always being here. If you ever have a schedule conflict, just let me know. So I'll expect it. But I really, really just love your support, and I love that you